right, so now we'll just spend a little bit of time getting into this week's assignment, right? The first thing that you're going to be tasked to be doing inside of Google to start to create this this map, right? Create this process that is going to be your scraps level. All right. So starting with the brainstorming, okay? This assignment is definitely going to be one that will open your eyes in terms of how the design process works, because these types of exercises, there are industry professionals that do maybe not 100 ideas every day, but there are some that will do 15 or 30 ideas every day of just an interesting game mechanic or an interesting game possibility, right? So this is something that you're going to have to practice at. It might not be easy at first, but this is definitely a good place to start. So starting with bad storming, right, or bad ideas, that's the first thing that is required for this assignment. And you'll see that this assignment has different ways for you to generate ideas. That's the purpose, is to show you there's several different ways for you to come up with interesting ideas. It's not just start at number one and go down a list. You can do different things to get your creative juices going. So starting with just bad ideas, all right? So at this section, I don't want you to be so so stressed or so worried about, oh my God, I got to make sure this fits with the creative vision, or I have to make sure I don't do this and I don't do that, and I'm not allowed to do this instead. Don't worry about any of that for the brainstorming section. Just get comfortable getting your ideas on paper. It could be something silly. It could be something that would be boring. But the most important part when doing this exercises, remember, we're creating setups, we're creating interactions. All right, so for example, right, the player has a runny nose and the player needs to find tissue boxes throughout the level and interact with them to pull tissues out, otherwise their nose will dry out. Right, that doesn't sound very exciting, doesn't sound very interesting, but I got something down on paper. I have an idea, I have something, I can move on to the next one. So this could be just something that maybe would be too out of scope. It doesn't fit within the vision. It's just getting used to getting your ideas on paper, right? 10 of those. Then moving on to the random association ideas. So inside the assignment, we have a link to a random word generator. All right, so that'll take you to a website, and it will just generate a random word. Then your job from there is to use that word in some way to create a setup or create an interaction inside of your level, right? Then from there, you have 20 of them. You'll have this list of 20. From there, you might notice some of them don't really fit very well. Some of them don't make much sense. But you might see there's 3 or 4 of them in there, or 5 that really work well, that are meaningful, right? So when you watch the John Cleese video, which is later this week, he mentions that, to where a computer, right? His phrase that he uses in there is, a computer can make any random connection between a banana and random, or a banana and government conspiracy, right? The computer can make a connection between that, but it will take a human mind or a human brain to actually decipher if there's any meaning there. So you might make all of these connections, these random word associations, and then go through and find 4 or 5 that actually have some potential that you could expand upon, or it might allow you to go down a different road or take a different approach. All right, next will be the free-form ideas. And I feel like this section here is either students' favorite section, or they hate it. They don't know what to do at all. Right, so in this section, this is basically going to be, if you've got this is basically, start to just generate ideas for your level, in any fashion that you'd like. Right, so if you're not too sure about what you want to make, or you don't really have a good plan, this might be a challenge for you. But if I've been talking this whole time and you already are ready to go and you're just waiting for me to shut up so you can start creating your ideas, then this might be a good section for you. What I recommend for anybody that's struggling with a section like this, or just a good plan to take for your whole level and or your whole brainstorming document, is to think of some of those mechanics that you want to build in your level. Think of those potential major mechanics that you want to have, and try to design setups for those. And let me give you some examples. Right, so we'll see in some slides coming up some of the mechanics you can use. But so turrets, right? You're allowed to have turrets in your level, right? Or pressure plates. Also exploding barrels, I've mentioned already, right? So those are three mechanics that could be something you build in your level. So for your 30 freeform ideas, you could say, okay, what are 5 interactions I could design that use turrets? Then from there, you could say, okay, what are 5 interactions I could use that use pressure plates? And then from there, do the same thing for exploding barrels, right? Do 10 for each or do 5 for each. It doesn't matter, but if you're able to start to think about the mechanics you can use, then you'll be able to carry over your ideas with you much better into the level design document. But just 30 freeform ideas, anything that you'd like in that section. Then moving on to the 20 incremental step ideas. So this is definitely one of my favorites. I think that this is a great way to come up with a good variety of ideas very quickly. Definitely one of my favorites for this assignment. So I have an example we can go over right here. Right, so right here would be just you can pull one of your ideas from any other category already. So it could be something from random association, something from your freeform. Just start with, okay, number 1 is an idea from another category, right? The player must interact with the mobile solar panel and position it so that the panel is pointing towards the sun. This then powers a building door, allowing the player access. That's number 1. All right, so the number 2 in the incremental step would be something like this. So it's going to be the exact same thing. You'll copy number 1 and put it in number 2. And now your goal is to change one word or one phrase, right, to make the sentence different, right? So the player must interact with the mobile solar panel and position it so that the panel is pointing towards a deadly laser. This then powers a building door, allowing the player access. So we change it to, rather than pointing it towards the sun, we're pointing it towards a deadly laser. So that's number 2. Then number 3 would be something like this, right? The player must interact with the mobile solar panel, position it so that the panel is pointing towards the deadly laser, and this then powers a force field that protects the scrapper. All right, so now it's starting to change, and we're starting to just change one word or one phrase at a time, so that number 1 is going to be drastically different from number 20, and you're going to have this big range in between. So I really like this one because it's very fast and it's very quick. If you're struggling with other categories, right, I'm totally okay with this. If you're struggling with freeform and you only do 20 freeform and you want to do 30 incremental step or some other number, I'm okay with that. So that's definitely something you can do. This assignment just should show you different ways for you to come up with these ideas. Alrighty, and then lastly is going to be the reductive ideas. So this is basically the last category, and honestly I don't really ever want to see this category blank. I'm not sure why it ever would be, because this should be basically a compilation of all the ideas you want to move forward with you into the level design document. So basically, if you have 5 ideas from freeform that you really like, you have 5 from random association that you really like, and then you have 10 from incremental step or any combination, you're just going to compile them and put them into the reductive ideas, or basically your finalized ideas. If you've gone through all of these sections and you're like, okay, now I have a good plan for what I actually want to build, then you're going to start to put it into reductive. So these 20 reductive ideas should be what you're bringing with you into your level design document. All right, so just a few tips and tricks to do this assignment. So definitely read the creative vision. I know that it's required, it's definitely important, but seriously read through it and make sure you understand it. If you have any questions about it that weren't already answered in the creative vision discussion, definitely reach out to myself or Anthony or even your instructor on your section to clarify anything. But make sure you understand that that's what you're designing for. You're designing a scraps level that fits within that vision. All right, definitely, like I mentioned before, choose some of those mechanics. So in the Scraps Creative Vision, we also have a section called Acceptable Major Mechanics. Choose some of those mechanics and start to brainstorm ideas that use those mechanics. And then lastly, I know it's hard, it's easier said than done, but definitely give yourself time for this type of assignment, as well as all of them for this course. If you try and do this assignment or others in this course in just one sitting, you're going to overwhelm yourself and you're going to stress yourself out. And with things like this where it's design focused, the quality can start to suffer because of that. So if you can, early in the week, just work on, tackle one section at a time, or work on bad ideas and random association. And then the next day do freeform ideas. And then later that day work on the next section. Try and break it up in chunks to keep your mind fresh if it's possible.